All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are taking a deep dive into, well, the OG Mission Impossible.
Oh, I like that. Intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay, so we're talking the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, where Jesus sends his 12 disciples on this, well, pretty monumental mission.
Yeah, Matthew chapter 10. It's a pivotal moment in the story, for sure. A real turning point.
And it's fascinating how Jesus blends the practical with, like, the totally supernatural in his instructions.
Right. It's this wild mix of advice on handling tough social situations, like where to find lodging if people reject you, and then bam, you've got the power to heal the sick.
Oh, yeah, and cast out demons, even raise the dead. It's enough to make your head spin.
It's a lot to process, that's for sure. Like, imagine getting sent on a mission with no map, no GPS, but hey, at least you can perform miracles.
Seriously, talk about feeling underprepared. But before we get too deep into the how-to of miracle working, let's meet our miracle workers, shall we?
Let's introduce the crew. So we've got Simon Peter, always going to start with Peter, right? And then,
Yeah.
of course, his brother, Andrew.
2-for-1 brothers special. Who else?
James and John, the sons of Zebedee, they were called. Always kind of a pair, those two. Then Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas.
Doubting Thomas. Sorry, had to get that one in there.
Mm-hmm.
Who else we got?
So we've got Matthew, the tax collector turned apostle, and another James, son of Alphaeus this time, just to keep things interesting. Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite.
And we can't forget Judas Iscariot, the one who, well, we all know the story there.
Right, definitely a name that carries a lot of weight. But their mission wasn't just about performing miracles, as amazing as that sounds. They had some really specific instructions.
And one of the most interesting, I think, is who they were supposed to talk to. Or rather, not talk to.
You're talking about that whole lost sheep of the house of Israel thing? Yeah, it's a curious detail for sure.
Because it's not exactly the love everyone message we often hear, right? So set the scene for us. Who are these groups, and why this specific focus on the Israelites?
Okay, so picture this. It's first century Palestine. The Israelites, they saw themselves as God's chosen people, totally separate from everyone else. And then you've got the Gentiles, which is basically everyone who wasn't Jewish.
Okay, got it. So like the in-group and the out-group.
Yeah.
But what about the Samaritans? They're kind of in their own category, right?
Exactly. The Samaritans, they had their own version of Judaism, their own temple, their own traditions, and it caused a lot of tension with the mainstream Jewish beliefs, like serious friction.
So it's more like Jesus is saying, start with your own community, focus on the people you know, even if there are differences within that community. But then things get even more, I don't know, mind-blowing. He gives them these insane powers and then tells them to pack basically nothing.
Yeah, like, hey, you can heal the sick, raise the dead, but make sure you borrow a friend's sandals because we're traveling light. It's kind of a whiplash moment.
Seriously. No gold, no silver, not even an extra tunic. What was the deal with that? Was this some ancient minimalist travel trend?
Think of it more as the ultimate trust exercise.
Yeah.
This lack of stuff, it throws the spotlight on faith over possessions. It's all about relying on God, on the kindness of others. They're going out there with nothing but the clothes on their backs and a whole lot of belief.
That's intense. Talk about a leap of faith. But this was no vacation, right?
Right.
Jesus gave him some pretty clear warnings about what to expect.
Oh yeah, no sugarcoating there.
Yeah.
He straight up says, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. Yikes, right. He talks about betrayal, hatred, even the possibility of death.
And then there's that cryptic advice, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Like, were they supposed to start carrying around doves and snakes as visual aids? What did he mean by that?
It's about finding a balance, I think. Be smart, be observant like a serpent, see the dangers and navigate them carefully, but also keep that innocence, that peacefulness of a dove. Don't go looking for trouble, but don't be naive about it either.
Okay, that makes sense. But still, not easy to do.
Yeah.
Especially when you're spreading a message that might not exactly be welcome. And Jesus doesn't shy away from that. He's very clear about the cost of following him, the weight of confessing your belief, even when it could land you in hot water.
And that raises a big question. What did it really mean to follow Jesus back then? It wasn't just a casual belief. It was a commitment, a loyalty that could cost you everything.
So it's a lot to unpack.
It was definitely a high-stakes commitment. And, it's fascinating how that idea of unwavering loyalty still resonates today, even outside of a religious context. Think about the things we're passionate about, the causes we dedicate ourselves to. There's often that same intensity, that willingness to sacrifice for something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, it makes you think about what it truly means to follow something, to really believe in something. Because based on what Jesus is saying here, it's not about blind obedience. It's about a deep internal change that affects how you live, how you interact with the world.
Exactly. It's not just about saying the right words. It's about embodying a set of values, a way of life that might even put you at odds with the people around you.
Which brings us back to that idea of losing your life to find it. It's a tough concept to grasp. Like how do you lose your life to find it? It seems contradictory.
It's about letting go of those selfish ambitions, those worldly desires that we often cling to for security or identity. It's about surrendering to a purpose, something bigger than yourself. Finding fulfillment, not in what you gain, but in what you give.
That's profound. And I bet that was a radical concept back then, just like it is today. It challenges us to ask ourselves, what are we willing to sacrifice? What are we willing to stand up for, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular?
Absolutely. It's about identifying our non-negotiables, those core values that shape our actions, our choices, our entire lives.
And that's what makes this deep dive into Matthew 10 so powerful. It's not just some ancient story about 12 guys on a mission. It reflects our own struggles, our own search for meaning in a world that can feel pretty chaotic at times.
You hit the nail on the head. It reminds us that even when things are tough, even when we feel surrounded by opposition, there's a strength that comes from connecting to something greater than ourselves.
And that strength can be found in the most unexpected places, even in something as simple as offering a glass of water to someone who needs it.
Precisely. Because in the end, it's those small acts of kindness, those expressions of compassion that have a ripple effect, creating a wave of hope and healing that the world desperately needs.
I love that image. But, as much as I love exploring these big ideas, I also want to ground this conversation in the reality of the 12 apostles' experience.
Sure, grounding is good. It's easy to get lost in metaphors and philosophies.
Exactly. So let's bring it back to the nitty-gritty of their mission. What were they actually tasked with doing, and how did they handle the complexities of the world they were living in?
Well, remember, their initial assignment was to focus on the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So their primary audience was their own people, not the Gentiles or the Samaritans.
And that choice really reflects the political and religious climate of the time, doesn't it? The Israelites were people struggling with their identity, their relationship with God, their place in the world. I mean, they were under Roman occupation, for crying out loud.
Exactly. And there was this longing for a Messiah, someone who would free them from oppression and restore their nation to its former glory. It was a time of intense yearning and uncertainty.
So into this powder keg of a situation, Jesus sends his 12 disciples, armed with nothing but their faith and a message that was sure to disrupt the status quo.
And let's not forget, he warned them very clearly about the risks involved. He told them, remember, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a visual.
Chilling, isn't it? It really highlights the danger they were facing. And then there's that advice. Be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. Such a powerful image, balancing that need for street smarts with a pure heart.
Yeah, it's like he's giving them a spiritual survival guide, equipping them to navigate a world that might not be so receptive to their message.
And those skills, they're just as relevant today, don't you think? I mean, let's be honest, the world can still be a pretty harsh place, especially for people who challenge the norms, who speak truth to power.
You said it. We may not be facing literal wolves these days, but there are plenty of metaphorical ones out there. People who try to silence us, to make us question ourselves, to fit into a mold that doesn't feel right.
And it's in those moments that we need to remember that wisdom of the serpent, that awareness of potential dangers.
Yeah.
But we also need that harmlessness of the dove, that ability to hold on to our integrity, our compassion, our commitment to what we believe in.
It's such a delicate dance, isn't it? Balancing that inner strength with a gentle approach. Not letting the wolves harden our hearts, but also not being naive about their presence.
Exactly. And knowing that even when we face challenges, even when we feel surrounded, we have a source of strength within us, something that connects us to something bigger, something that can help us through.
And that connection can be expressed in the simplest ways, like that cup of cold water offered with genuine care. You know, those small acts of kindness, they can be incredibly powerful. They have this ripple effect, spreading outwards and touching countless lives.
That's a beautiful image to hold on to. But before we wrap up, there's one more passage in Matthew 10 that I think deserves our attention. It often gets overlooked, but it speaks volumes about what it means to truly support a cause, a movement, a person.
You're talking about the part where Jesus talks about the rewards for those who receive a prophet or a righteous person in their name, right?
That's the one. It's like this hidden gem tucked away in the middle of all these grand pronouncements about mission and sacrifice.
But it's so crucial because it highlights the importance of community, of supporting those who are out there doing the hard work, spreading the message, walking the walk.
It's like saying, hey, discipleship isn't a solo mission, it takes a village.
Right. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected, that we all have a part to play in creating a world where justice and compassion flourish.
And that even small acts of support, a listening ear, a word of encouragement, a place at the table can make a huge difference.
It's about creating this network of love and encouragement that sustains and empowers those working for positive change.
And that's a powerful message to carry with us, isn't it?
It is. It's a reminder that we're not alone in this journey. We have each other, and together we can make a real difference.
Now, before we move on, I want to address the elephant in the room, the part of Matthew 10 that often sparks controversy.
You're talking about the passage where Jesus talks about bringing not peace, but a sword, right?
Yeah, it's the part where he talks about potential division, even within families. And I know it could be easily misinterpreted, even used to justify violence or intolerance.
Absolutely. It's crucial to approach this passage with nuance, understanding that Jesus isn't advocating for literal warfare or hatred. He's describing the inherent challenges that arise when our deepest convictions clash with societal norms.
He's talking about that tension, that potential for conflict, when we choose to live in alignment with our values, even when those values aren't shared by everyone around us.
And this isn't just limited to religious beliefs either. It can apply to any deeply held conviction, any cause we're passionate about, any stance that challenges the status quo.
Because when we stand up for what we believe in, we're essentially drawing a line in the sand. And that line can sometimes separate us from people who see things differently, even people we love.
It's that age-old struggle between staying true to ourselves and maintaining harmony in our relationships. And yeah, it can be incredibly painful, especially when it happens within families.
It's a reminder that discipleship, that commitment to our values, isn't always easy. It can come at a cost.
But it's also a testament to the power of our convictions, the depth of our beliefs. It's about having the courage to stand firm in what we believe, even when it's unpopular, even when it causes friction.
But that doesn't mean we should go out looking for conflict or try to force our beliefs on others.
Not at all. True discipleship is rooted in compassion, understanding, and respect, even for those who hold different views.
It's about finding ways to have meaningful conversations, to bridge divides, to build understanding, even when we disagree.
Because at the end of the day, we're all part of the same human family, and our shared humanity should always come before our differences.
And that's a message of hope and unity that we can all embrace, regardless of our beliefs.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Phew. Matthew 10. It's quite right, isn't it?
It is. Practical advice, spiritual challenges, all crammed into one chapter. It's like a discipleship boot camp. But one thing that really stuck with me was that whole idea of provision.
Yeah, that reliance on something bigger than ourselves. It's a theme that pops up again and again.
Totally. Like from traveling light to that idea that supporting the disciples brings rewards, it all boils down to trust, surrender, recognizing that we're not in control.
Right. It's like taking that leap of faith and trusting that the universe will catch you.
Exactly. And that support can come from anywhere. Remember that part about getting a reward for even offering a disciple a cup of water? It's like saying even the smallest acts of kindness matter.
It's like dropping a pebble in a pond, you know? Those ripples, they start small, but they spread out and touch everything.
I love that. Such a powerful image. It shows how interconnected we all are, how even the smallest gestures can have a big impact.
And when we tap into that connection, that trust in something bigger, it gives us strength to face the tough stuff. Like we're plugging into this universal power source of love and compassion.
It's almost like tuning into a different frequency, one that's all about hope and healing.
And that frequency, it's contagious. It can inspire others to open up to that possibility of something greater, something beyond ourselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Matthew 10, it's clear that it's not just a story about 12 guys going on a mission. It's a guidebook for all of us, a blueprint for living a life of purpose and meaning.
Absolutely. A call to embrace our own unique journeys of discipleship, to step out in faith and trust that something good will happen.
We've covered so much in this deep dive. The historical context, Jesus' teachings, the timeless wisdom that still speaks to us today. It's been a real journey, wouldn't you say?
It has. We talked about faith, courage, sacrifice, finding that balance between wisdom and innocence, navigating difficult relationships. It's a lot to unpack.
And we can't forget the importance of community, supporting each other, even offering that cup of cold water. It all mattered.
It all makes a difference. And before we go, I want to leave everyone with one last thought. We've talked about the challenges, the sacrifices of living a life of conviction, a life that aligns with our values.
But there's another side to that coin, right?
Exactly. It's about remembering the joy, the fulfillment that comes from pursuing our passions, from connecting to something that's bigger than ourselves.
See, that's what fuels us. That's what keeps us going, even when things get tough.
So, my question for you, for everyone listening, is this. What brings you joy? What sets your soul on fire? What makes you feel truly alive?
Because when we tap into those sources of joy, those things that light us up, it's like we unlock this incredible source of energy and inspiration. And that energy, that passion, it can make a real difference in the world.
So go out there, embrace your passions, let your light shine, make a difference.
Beautifully said. And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive into Matthew 10. We hope it sparks some new insights, some thought-provoking questions, and a renewed sense of purpose for all of you.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep shining your light.
Until next time, everybody.